There's a Chinese saying, well, actually it was a saying by Confucius, but it goes, 见贤思齐焉,见不贤而内自省也, which honestly is such a genius outlook on life, and I can't believe I slept on this quote for years. Anywho, this quote sort of addresses scenarios where we meet people from all walks of life whose traits and certain qualities we don't necessarily see eye to eye on. Depending on the nature or the closeness of the relationship you have with this person, their antics will annoy you to varying degrees. Usually the closer you are to the person, the more annoyed and irritated you are by their antics or supposed flaws. And because they're not so toxic or completely irredeemable that you want to cut them off, you have to deal with this discomfort. So how do you deal with it? How do you reconcile these differences, disagreements, and frankly, disapproval? So I thought I'd give my 2 cents on this based on this quote. It's always easier to point the finger at other people, whether that objection is justified or not. We all want to hold other people's flaws and vices accountable, but be forgiven for our own. And as unreasonable and subversive as that sounds, whenever we feel annoyed, insulted, or just bothered by people's certain behaviors, that's precisely the time that we need to sit down and examine ourselves. Specifically, look for the ways that we have behaved similarly. Because usually when certain things bother us to our core, that just means that we have the same flaws or vices, albeit to a minor degree, maybe a less severe version of it. This isn't saying that that behavior in and of itself shouldn't be rectified or reprimanded, but if something somebody did in your own home without inflicting pain on you bothers you to the core, maybe you need to pause and think twice and find out why. Ooh, that rhymed. But let me put it this way. If somebody walked up to you, spat in your face, slapped you for no reason, then immediately you're like, oh my god, get me away from this crazy lunatic. Proceed to call 911 and make sure they find your way back to their asylum or wherever they came from. You're not thinking, woe is me, how could they do this to me, how dare they, the audacity, because you just accept that this isn't about you and it's not your job to fix them. In these scenarios, you take actions, you take precautions, but you don't let it get to you personally because what's done is done. Now, on the contrary, if a close friend is rude to a waiter and it bothers you, but your response isn't, this isn't okay, I need to tell them about it, something needs to be done or else, and instead you chose to dwell on this, then the backstory could be that you also don't respect people in the service industry. At least you don't hold a firm enough position to know better, to speak up, as opposed to dwelling on it and wasting precious energy condemning your friend only in your head. Obviously, life is filled with more nuanced scenarios, and certainly when things bother us, it's not always just because we necessarily do the same thing. But if you've spoken up, if you've expressed your objections, if you've established nice and firm boundaries, and something that someone else does still bothers you, try to look at it as an opportunity to ask yourself, hey, have I behaved similarly? How am I similar to this annoying person? Or this annoying trait about them? Maybe you don't do that thing anymore, you've changed, but it still bothers you when other people are still doing that. Or maybe you are dissimilar. It's still a good reminder for you to never do that thing. Like the quote says, examine yourself so as to not have the same defects. Do what you can, cut off toxic people, establish boundaries. If you want to be in a relationship with this person, speak up when something bothers you. But other than that, live and let live. Try to be around more positive people, people that have more good qualities than you, people that have integrity, and have a little detachment and or forgiveness when it comes to other people's flaws. At the very least, don't sit there all day obsessing over and condemning people's flaws and vices, especially because, well, in reality, you probably also possess the same qualities.